Today, let's talk about the single best part of stopping drinking alcohol. This is for me. I've gone through this now for 13 years. And this has to be, if I was to choose one thing that happened to me in all that time, that is the best part of stopping drinking alcohol, apart from the decision to stop. What was it? It's just one of those things. How do you know you're making progress? How do you know you're going to think about other things apart from drinking, that you're going to get away from that idea that you need a drink, that you're feeling like you're beating the habit, that you're feeling like you're beating all of the stuff that comes with the habit or came with the drinking, that you get to that stage where you're just like, that's it. For me, that journey of stopping drinking alcohol started a long time ago. It was all to do with moderation. I mean, even though you say to yourself, well, yeah, I mean, alcohol is part of my life. I go out and it's part of my socializing, it's part of my relaxing, all of this kind of stuff. You know that there's a negative side to this. And you know that negative side is, it's taking over, right? You might not be able to put that into words. I couldn't say to you at the beginning how much alcohol had taken over my life until I stopped, until I'm on the other side of that. And I'm looking back in. I'm looking at my life is actually opening up, and I'm starting to do the things that I've wanted to do, but I couldn't do because of the effort that I was putting into these things. When you're drinking, the more you drink, the more that your life gets funneled down into the habit, into it narrows your life, so that eventually, we look at things from the perspective of people are on a continuum or a spectrum, and the spectrum starts up here and goes down here. You start alcohol up here and then you go down where I suppose the image that comes to mind is that guy sitting in a doorway, homeless, begging for a drink, and that's all he can think about is the next drink. So it's that we're thinking about the time and energy that we put into alcohol. We've got less of that time and energy to pursue other things. And it's not even about, we've talked about this before, we've got the same 24 hours in the day as a non-drinker when you're a drinker. Same 24 hours in the day, same 7 days a week, but you haven't got the same levels of energy because you're using the energy that you should be using on yourself, on progress in your life, on other people in your life, just in recovering from something that you're doing to yourself. Right, so that's a conflict that weighs heavily on your mind, and it's everything else starts to get pushed out. You don't realize it because it's so slow. It's an insipid process. You don't realize it's happening until the consequences become so great for you that you get to that stage where you just, for me, I can't say it was a rage. It was like a silent rage or a quiet rage where I thought that, I can't carry on doing this. This is taking away from me the one thing that I thought that I had in my life that was sacrosanct, and that was being a dad, being a good dad, I should say, being the best dad that I could be, the best role in my life that I could pin on myself. If I could choose anything, it would be that label. And that was, when I was sat on that balcony couple of days before I stopped drinking, I just saw that as being something that was being robbed from me by the alcohol. And I just couldn't do it with myself anymore. So I think as soon as you start drinking, you're on that slide. Alan Carr talked about it in his book, the great Alan Carr. And he talked about it, he called it the pitcher plant analogy. So he says a fly lands in the middle of the pitcher plant, it gets stuck onto the nectar, and slowly but surely, as it's eating the nectar, it's slowly dropping down into the bowels of the plant. And in the bowels of the plant are the digestive juices. And it only realizes too late, and then it can't get out. And that's the problem with alcohol, is that we get sucked in by the propaganda, by the brainwashing, by the bullshit that goes on with alcohol. Not only from the alcohol companies, I'm not blaming that, but from our peers, from our parents, from the people that surround us, from our cultures. This is all piles up, so that, the alcohol companies come out and they go, this is easy. Once they get you hooked into that, they don't have to advertise to you anymore. So they keep churning the advertising towards the youngsters, and that's all they need to do. Now, I want to talk about some of the earlier progress that I had in this journey. For a start, when I first stopped, the only thing I could think of doing that would keep me occupied and keep my brain in check and really to get me thinking and to keep me thinking and to try and work out things. How am I going to do this? How am I going to figure out these things for myself? Was to walk, and it'd be 2, 3 hours, 4 hours sometimes in the morning. A lot of kilometers put under the belt, a lot of miles, and for me it was a form of meditation. It put the smile back on my face, really, and it made me have hope. It helped me to have hope. And there's always going to be doubt with hope. At the beginning of this journey, you're always going to have this mixture of doubt and hope, the two sides of the same coin. You can't have hope without some doubt, otherwise you've got certainty, right? The same thing with the other way around. This doubt is not that you're completely sure that something bad is going to happen to you. There's always a bit of hope mixed in with that. And, I suppose the ratio can vary, but I had a lot of hope in the beginning. And, that hope was, as I'm going through the journey, it's really, it really helped me. It helped me to move forwards. And then maybe 6 months after I'd stopped, my dad went into hospital. He'd had a heart attack, and he was, the doctor said that he wasn't coming back out again. But I remember looking over at him, and as I was talking to the doctor, I had a glance over at him in the bed, and he was just staring at me, and as if to say, whatever he's saying to you, that's not going to happen. And he came out, and everything was good, but he changed his diet, and he started making changes. And I started to say to myself, because the doctor had told me that it was a lot of what had happened to him was down to his lifestyle. So the stuff that he was putting into his mouth, food, cigarettes, booze. And I think because I'd stopped drinking 6 months before, he kept saying to me over and over, this is in that first 6 months before he went into hospital, how proud he was. And, I was doing the right thing, that he was always worried about me and the amounts that I was drinking. And he, as soon as he got outside of the hospital, he says, I'm not drinking again. That's it. That's it for me. And, he changed his diet as well. Now, when he went into the hospital, this was another thing that happened to me, was my sister said, don't drink. Whatever you do, don't even think about drinking. And to be honest with you, it hadn't even crossed my mind. And it was that moment that I knew that there wasn't a single thing that could happen to me that would drive me to alcohol, right? And I remember out walking. I was out walking in where I was doing all my old videos. If you have a look at those videos in the first year or two, they're always around the same hill and the same pine forest. And I remember just being really happy with myself. And, my dad's out of hospital. Things are looking good. And, he's an old fella, right? He's in his 80s, early 80s. But he's still there, I've still got my dad around. And just being good. And that I think that was the best part for me. When I'm talking about the single best part of stopping drinking alcohol, was that conviction. Because it was a conviction at that stage. When you stop drinking alcohol, like I said, in those first few days, few weeks, even the first 2 or 3 months, you've still got doubt attached to you. And if you're doing the work that is necessary to do, to distance yourself from the alcohol, to put up obstacles between you and the alcohol so that you never go back to drinking again, and taking down obstacles for yourself moving forward so that you're opening up a lot more potential for yourself, then you will start to feel, you start to believe. And that's the point. You can say, I believe as much as you fucking want. It doesn't make any difference unless you do believe, because you have to feel it in your gut. No matter what happens to you, you can't think of a single situation, the worst situation. Think of the worst situation that could happen to you that you would automatically, as a drinker, think, I'm getting pissed now and I'm going to stay pissed for a while. An example pops to mind is when my wife died. This was back in 2004. And I think I drank for probably 6 weeks straight. I just didn't want to be sober. I just couldn't face it. When my mom passed away, it was the same kind of thing. A lot of drinking. When my dad passed away, eventually, there was none of that. There was no. It was a grieving process. Fair enough. And you go through that grieving process, but it was nowhere near as bad because you're facing into it. You're facing into your problems. So, like I said, it was at that moment that I thought to myself, there is no situation that I can ever see myself in that will ever push me into having a drink again, or thinking that putting this shit inside my body is going to solve it. No. Right? So it's only when you get that belief, then you can say to yourself, I'm never drinking again. Ever. Ever. And that will, I tell you, the lift that gives you, the confidence that it gives you, just the weight off your shoulders. Think about when you're drinking, that it's causing you harm. And the more that you drink, the more harm it's causing. Physical harm, liver, kidneys, brain, everywhere, wherever the alcohol flows, the damage goes. Think about that. Think about all the mind fucks that you have because of alcohol, right? All the things that you could have done, should have done because you were drinking that you wouldn't have done if you hadn't have been drinking. All the things that you said and done, all of it. And then think, this is a good idea. It doesn't get to that stage anymore. Like I said, there is no way, once you get that conviction inside your mind, that weight, that existential weight lifts off your shoulders. Because, when you're thinking along those lines, when you're drinking like that, then we're doing our best to try and avoid thinking about it. It's that cognitive dissonance where we're pushing down those negative feelings, those negative ideas about alcohol. We're not thinking about them, but they're still there. And the more that you push them down, the more weight that is on your shoulders. So to know that you're never going to drink again, that is a huge lift. It's a huge lift. So my advice to anyone starting out on this journey is just to have patience. This will come. You're not going to get this within the first week, 2 weeks. Like I said, the first few months. For me, it was, I think July, August of that year. So 7-8 months into it. And you start out with hope. That is the only thing that you have to start out with, your hope and your drive and your commitment, however much your commitment is for you at that moment. Don't forget that commitment is something as well that is linked to self-belief. How you respond is linked to self-belief and confidence in these things. And as your confidence grows, your commitment grows. The fact that you can take responsibility, and responsibility from the perspective of, this is how I'm going to respond. I choose to respond this way, not in the other way. I'm not going to be an automaton, a robot, and just act that way. I'm going to do something different. So you start with that hope in the beginning. You hope that things are going to be different, and you accept the doubt. The doubt is that's what gives you the discomfort, is the doubt. The doubt comes in the discomfort, the cravings, the feelings, the stories that are popping into your head. Oh, maybe one drink will be okay. Maybe, my mates are going out and the FOMO and all that kind of stuff. That's all doubt. Accept it. Say that this is part of the process. I'm going to push through this. This is not going to be there in a month or 2 months. Like I said, do the work. When you do the work, then we always have a simple thing. Stop the flow, do the work, and move on. And that moving on is the most important part, that you move on from alcohol. You're not spending the rest of your life in a Netherland where you're saying, I'm an alcoholic for the rest of my life and only one drink will get me there. What you want to drink is, I'm never going to have a drink. So there is no one drink. Fuck that. And that's certainty. And once you get that certainty, then everything else is, you don't need hope anymore. There is no doubt anymore. So I can't tell you when that certainty is going to come for you. Like I said, it was 5-6 months for me, 7 months, 8 months. I can't remember exactly. A lot happened to me in that 8 months that really concretized my ambition to move forwards, opened up my potential to move forwards, and helped me to see that I was on the right path. A lot of things happened. So a lot of those things will happen to you, and you never know what it is that is going to happen. Like, we make these videos all the time, and I can't tell you how many different things people have said to me. Oh, this made a difference for me. This is the thing that triggered it all for me and made me want to stop drinking. So many different things that I wouldn't have never thought when I was saying them that they would affect somebody. The fourth thing is just to take it into account that you're starting out as a beginner, right? You're still in that operating system of operating yourself underneath the drinker's mind. So the drinker's mind, when we're talking about the drinker's mind, it's the habit per se inside your brain, all the ways of doing things, the ways of thinking, the ways of interacting with people, the ways of dealing with life, dealing with problems. All of that is the drinker's mind. And just because you stop drinking, it doesn't mean to say that everything else is going to disappear. You're still thinking in those ways, right? And that's what that interim period is. You're coping without alcohol, then you're acclimatizing, and then you're adapting. And once you get into the adaptation phase, you're starting to think like the new person. And that's where you want to go. So you have to accept the beginner's mind at the beginning, that there's certain parts of this journey that you're not going to know, that you're not going to know how to deal with these things, and you just have to move on in that doubt, in that inexperience, being a learner and saying, yeah, I might be in my 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s, but I'm a kid again, in that sense, that I'm kind of got this innocence about where I'm going. There's a lot of fear in that, but don't have the fear, because everything you're leaving the one thing behind you that is causing you fear, right? So, and don't force it. These things, it will come when it comes. Don't force that, believing in yourself, and you can't force that self-belief. You can't force the self-confidence. That will come as it comes. That's it. You'll know it when it comes. It'll be there for you. So listen, I'll end it there for today. Take good care of yourself, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Let me know if you have any topics you would like me to cover, any problems that you have that you'd like me to help you with, and I'll see if I can do a video on them. If you want to get my help, we're Habits for You too. All the options are there. Take care of yourself. Onwards and upwards. Keep the alcohol out of your mouth. Hey, bye now.